I begin this booktube talking about Tom Canty, who is one of the main characters in the novel The Prince and the Pauper, written by Mark Twain. The other protagonist is Edward Tudor, who is the Prince of Wales, son of Henry VIII, the King of England. The story is setting in the 16th century in the ancient city of London, and the peculiarities of the plot are that both the Prince and the Pauper resemble each other in image, in appearance, and they are also born in the same day. One of them surrounded by the glory and grandeur of the kingdom, and the other surrounded by an extremely dismal poverty. But now let's focus on Tom Canty. Tom is a kind-hearted boy who lives in poor conditions. He's always dressed in poor rags and sleeps on the floor. He lives with his mother, with his two sisters, twin sisters, and with his father and grandmother. Tom's family suffer abuse and violence from his father, who is a cruel person, especially when Tom arrives home empty-handed and his father gets angry with him and his mother tries to protect Tom from violence. However, despite this, Tom is not unhappy and he always wishes for a better life. And that is because in the story, Tom receives an important influence from a priest called Father Andrew, who teaches Tom to read and speak a bit of Latin, and also tells him royal tales about princely life. These stories produce a strong effect on Tom's mind, and because of that, he starts acting and speaking like a real prince, up to the point that his biggest desire in the world is to meet a real bone and flesh prince. One day, when walking immersed in his dreaming world, Tom reaches the palace gates, where he meets Edward Tudor, the Prince of Wales, and because of his excitement, he is beaten and insulted by a royal guard. At that moment, the Prince of Wales observes the injustice towards Tom and invites him to come into the palace.
I will describe Tom Canty's character after the climax of the story, that is when he reaches the palace and exchanges clothes with the Prince Edward Tudor. After that moment, they trade their identities accidentally because of their resemblance. With this new context, our character starts feeling proud and admiring his finery. Now he sleeps on a rich bed, surrounded by the plums of royalty. But on the other hand, he feels lonely and captive. But with the pass of the time, he starts feeling comfortable with this new life and starts forgetting a bit about the real Prince Edward Tudor. Tom Canty's influence in the palace is important because with his bad manners, his mistakes, his simple heart and his nature, he breaks down all the barriers of etiquette. He's a prince who eats with his hands, who fills the pockets with nuts, who commits mistakes and prays for pardon, and who also cries. After the death of King Henry VIII, Tom Canty becomes king and he reigns with high gentleness and mercy. So when all the mysteries are cleared up and the Prince Edward Tudor recovers his place now as king, he is pleased with Tom Canty, so Tom gains his favor and becomes his favorite. So at the end of the story, Tom Canty is said to have been part of the royalty and a kind king. In my opinion, the book The Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain is a fantastic book because it shows us two different kinds of people, two different contexts, two realities, the rich and the poor, and the poor dreaming to be like the rich. The main character, Tom Canty, is a dreamer who wants to be like a prince and one day he can see his dream becoming real. So I think this book gives us some hope also. I will strongly recommend it.
To be honest, I was delighted reading The Prince and the Pauper because the story provokes in you lots of emotions, namely as you experiment sympathy for Tom Canty's life, as you experiment pity for his mother's affliction, or when you feel uncertainty for Edward's situation outside the palace. The story gets you trapped from the beginning to the end, and I strongly recommend this novel for you to read it in your spare time and have fun.
The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde. The story is about an American family who move into a castle haunted by the ghost of a dead nobleman, Sir Simon, who killed his wife and was stabbed to death by his wife's brothers. The story begins when the American minister, Mr. Otis, and his skeptic family move into the Canterville Chase, despite warnings from Canterville that the house has been haunted. The Otis family is formed by Mr. Otis, their eldest son Washington, their daughter Virginia, and their other twins. During the stay in the Chase, terrifying things happen, like some of cheating change or the repeated blood stain that appears on the floor just by the fireplace, after being removed several times. Humorously, no one this is scared Otis family in the least. The other twins become the nightmare of the ghost, making fun of him and play him terrible jokes. The ghost, tired of being humiliated, seeks consolation in Virginia, who helps him to free himself of their sins so finally he could rest in peace.
The Canterville Ghost is set in the English countryside in the late 19th century, and the story takes place in an old English country house near London that is called Canterville Chase, which is a large and very old house describing in Gothic terms. It is an old mansion with secret rooms and passageways, long corridors, carved gargoyles, stained glass windows and oak panelings. Portraits of long-dead Canterville ancestors, ancient tapestries, and a suit of armor add to the medieval-like setting.
The Canterville Ghost is a well-written story with elements of parody of the Gothic genre and comedy. I widely recommend it because the author is great and the content is entertaining. And the author has the wonderful quality of writing elegantly with an excellent handling of humor and irony, breaking with some paradigms about ghost stories.
We recommend this novel if you want to laugh and leave the stereotype of typical horror stories.
Thanks for watching this booktube.
We hope you have enjoyed this video as much as we did.
This was Laura